Foundations of Research Excellence, Background Research, and Article Evaluation. In this lecture, we will learn how to conduct rigorous background research and systematically evaluate scholarly literature. As future scholar practitioners, you stand at the intersection of theory and practice, where your work must be both academically rigorous and practically relevant. The ability to conduct thorough background research and critically evaluate existing literature is not merely an academic exercise. It is the foundation upon which all meaningful research is built. Without these skills, even the most innovative ideas can become lost in a sea of irrelevant information, or worse, duplicate work that has already been done. This lecture will provide you with concrete tools and frameworks that will serve you throughout your doctoral journey and into your professional careers. We will explore how to conduct effective background research, understand the landscape of academic publishing, and apply systematic evaluation criteria to assess the quality and relevance of scholarly work. Part 1. The Art and Science of Background Research. Background research represents the critical first step in any scholarly endeavor, yet it is often misunderstood or rushed by eager doctoral students. Let me be clear about what background research is and what it is not. Background research is not about answering your final research question. That comes later. Instead, it is the systematic process of gathering general information to better understand a topic before narrowing it into a specific researchable question. For applied research, which is the hallmark of DBA programs, background research serves a dual purpose. First, it helps ensure that your work addresses relevant, real-world problems that matter to practitioners and organizations. Second, it ensures that your research remains grounded in scholarly frameworks and contributes to the academic conversation in meaningful ways. Think of background research as building the foundation of a house. You wouldn't start constructing walls without first understanding the terrain, the soil conditions, and the architectural requirements. Similarly, you cannot develop a meaningful research question without first understanding the landscape of your chosen field, the existing debates, and the gaps that need to be filled. The 6 Guiding Questions framework. Background research often begins by systematically answering what I call the 6 W's, a framework that helps you explore any management issue comprehensively. These questions are: who are the key stakeholders? This question helps you identify the primary actors in your area of interest. Are you looking at executives, middle managers, frontline employees, customers, or perhaps regulatory bodies? Understanding who is involved helps you frame your research in terms of its practical impact and relevance. What are the main issues or practices involved? This question focuses on the core phenomena you're investigating. What specific practices, problems, or processes are at the heart of your inquiry? This helps you define the boundaries of your research and understand the key variables or concepts involved. Where is the issue most visible or impactful? Geography, industry, and organizational context all matter in applied research. Understanding where your phenomenon is most prevalent or problematic helps you determine the scope and generalizability of your eventual findings. When did it emerge or evolve? Timing is crucial in business research. Is this a new phenomenon driven by recent technological or social changes, or is it a persistent issue that has evolved over time? Understanding the temporal dimension helps you contextualize your research within broader trends. How does the practice or problem function in organizations? This question gets at the mechanisms and processes involved. How do things actually work in practice? What are the formal and informal systems at play? Why does it matter for managers, employees, or society? This is perhaps the most important question for applied research. If you cannot articulate why your research matters to real people facing real problems, then you may need to reconsider your focus. Applying the 6 W's. Let me illustrate this framework with a contemporary example that many of you may find relevant. Return to office policies. Who? The key stakeholders include executives making policy decisions, HR leaders implementing these policies, and employees across various industries who are directly affected by these mandates. What? The main issue involves policies requiring employees to shift from remote work arrangements back to physical office locations, often after extended periods of successful remote work during the pandemic, where this phenomenon is particularly visible in large firms within finance, technology, and consulting sectors, though it spans across multiple industries and geographic regions. While remote work policies accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic, the push for return to office mandates has intensified significantly from 2023 through 2025, creating a new phase in workplace evolution. How? Organizations are implementing these policies through various mechanisms: mandated minimum days in the office, hybrid schedules that balance remote and in-person work, or performance-linked incentives that tie career advancement to office presence. Why? Organizations argue that in-person work is essential for maintaining company culture, fostering collaboration, and ensuring employee engagement. However, employees often cite flexibility and productivity concerns, creating a tension that has significant implications for talent retention, organizational performance, and employee well-being. This systematic exploration using the 6 Ws reveals multiple potential research avenues. You might investigate the effectiveness of different implementation strategies, the impact on employee engagement and retention, or the relationship between return to office policies and organizational performance metrics. Moving from curiosity to research questions. One of the most challenging aspects of doctoral research is transforming broad curiosity into focused, researchable questions. Background research is the bridge that makes this transformation possible. During your background research, you will inevitably uncover issues, debates, and gaps that can be refined into specific research questions. Consider how our return to office example might evolve into researchable questions. Your background research might reveal that while organizations claim these policies improve engagement, there is limited empirical evidence supporting this claim. This could lead to a research question such as, does mandating in-office days improve employee engagement, or does it increase turnover risk among high-performing employees? Alternatively, your background research might uncover interesting informal practices that emerge around these policies. Perhaps you discover that some teams are batching their required office days around social activities like shared coffee breaks or team lunches. This could evolve into a research question about how informal rituals influence team cohesion in hybrid work environments. The key insight here is that background research helps you identify not just what has been studied, but what hasn't been studied, or what has been studied but with conflicting or inconclusive results. These gaps and controversies are where meaningful doctoral research lives. The strategic benefits of thorough background research. Conducting comprehensive background research provides several strategic advantages that will serve you throughout your doctoral journey. Building familiarity with terminology and debates. Every field has its own language, and understanding this vocabulary is essential for engaging with the scholarly community. Background research helps you learn not just the terms, but how they are used in different contexts and how their meanings may have evolved over time. Assessing the research landscape. Before committing to a research direction, you need to understand how much literature exists on your topic. Too little literature might indicate that your topic is too narrow or too new to support a substantial doctoral project. Too much literature might suggest that the field is oversaturated, making it difficult to contribute something novel. Identifying controversies and unresolved challenges. The most interesting research often emerges from areas where scholars disagree or where practical experience contradicts theoretical predictions. Background research helps you identify these productive tensions, sparking ideas for applied research focus. As you read broadly, you will inevitably encounter ideas, methods, or findings that spark new connections. These moments of insight often lead to the most innovative research approaches. Let me provide another example to illustrate these benefits. Suppose your background research on employee engagement reveals competing theoretical frameworks. Some scholars emphasize intrinsic motivation factors like autonomy and purpose, while others focus on extrinsic rewards and recognition systems. This theoretical tension, combined with practical management tools like pulse surveys and incentive programs, gives you both the vocabulary and the conceptual framework to design research that bridges theory and practice. Background research versus in-depth research. It's crucial to understand the distinction between background research and the in-depth research that will characterize your literature review and dissertation work. These serve different purposes and require different approaches. Background research is characterized by broad exploration designed to raise questions and frame issues. You'll use a variety of sources including books, professional reports, reputable websites, and trade publications. The goal is to identify scope and gaps, to understand the big picture before diving into the details. In-depth research, by contrast, involves narrow, detailed analysis designed to answer specific research questions. This phase relies heavily on peer-reviewed journals, empirical studies, and case analyses. The goal is to provide evidence and theoretical grounding for your specific research focus. Think of background research as reconnaissance. You're surveying the territory to understand the landscape. In-depth research is more like excavation. You're digging deeply into a specific site to uncover detailed evidence. The critical point here is that skipping background research creates significant risks. Without this broad foundation, you might develop a project that is either too broad to manage effectively or too narrow to support with sufficient evidence. You might also miss important connections to related fields or fail to understand how your work fits into the broader scholarly conversation. Finding reliable sources for background research. For doctoral level applied research, you need to be strategic about your source selection. Different types of sources serve different purposes in your background research process. Books and handbooks provide broad frameworks and comprehensive overviews. These are particularly valuable for understanding foundational theories in leadership, strategy, and management. They help you understand how your specific topic fits into larger theoretical traditions. Professional and trade publications offer insights into current practice and emerging trends. Publications like Harvard Business Review, SHRM reports, and McKinsey Insights provide the practitioner perspective that is essential for applied research. These sources help you understand what problems practitioners are actually facing and what solutions they are trying. Academic databases such as ABI/Inform, Business Source Complete, and JSTOR provide access to peer-reviewed research. Even in the background research phase, you'll want to sample some academic literature to understand the theoretical landscape and identify key scholars in your field. News and industry reports from sources like the Wall Street Journal, Deloitte white papers, or PwC industry analyses provide current context and help you understand how your topic is playing out in real-world settings. A word of caution about source quality. While sources like blogs or social media posts may spark initial ideas, they are rarely sufficient for doctoral-level research without supporting scholarly evidence. Use them for inspiration and current awareness, but always seek more rigorous sources to support your actual research. Refining your topic through background research. One of the most valuable outcomes of thorough background research is topic refinement. Most doctoral students begin with topics that are either too broad or too narrow for effective research. Background research helps you find the Goldilocks zone, a topic that is just right. Too broad. Employee engagement in all industries is an example of a topic that is too broad. While employee engagement is certainly important, this framing provides no focus for your research. You could spend years reading without making meaningful progress toward a specific research question. Too narrow. Coffee batching practices among accountants in Frisco, Texas represents the opposite problem. While this is certainly specific, it may be too narrow to support a substantial doctoral project or to generate findings that are broadly applicable. Just right. How coffee batching practices shape employee engagement in hybrid professional service firms strikes a better balance. It's specific enough to be manageable, but broad enough to be significant. It connects a specific practice, coffee batching, to a broader theoretical concept, employee engagement, within a defined but substantial context, hybrid professional service firms. The process of moving from too broad to just right requires iterative refinement based on what you discover during your background research. You might start with a broad interest in employee engagement. Discover through your reading that hybrid work environments present unique challenges, and then identify specific practices that seem to matter in these contexts. navigating the academic publishing landscape, understanding scholarly, popular, and trade publications. As doctoral students, you must become sophisticated consumers of information who can distinguish between different types of publications and understand their appropriate uses in your research. Not all published material is created equal, and understanding these distinctions is crucial for building credible, rigorous research. The academic publishing landscape can be broadly categorized into three main types of publications: scholarly/academic articles, popular articles, and trade articles. Each serves different purposes, targets different audiences, and maintains different standards for the information they provide. Scholarly and academic articles, the gold standard. Scholarly articles represent the gold standard for doctoral research. These publications are produced by academic institutions and scholarly platforms such as Elsevier, Sage, and other major academic publishers. The authors are typically professors, researchers, and experts who are recognized scholars in their fields. Importantly, these authors generally are not paid for their contributions. They write to advance knowledge and build their academic reputations. The audience for scholarly articles consists primarily of other scholars, researchers, and students in the field. This specialized audience allows for sophisticated, theoretical discussions and complex methodological approaches that might not be accessible to general readers. The primary goal of scholarly articles is to share or present original research or scholarship. These publications aim to answer the so what questions that drive academic inquiry. They seek to make connections between variables and issues, advance theoretical understanding, and contribute new knowledge to their fields. The content of scholarly articles typically includes research results, reviews of research in specific fields, and book reviews. The structure is highly standardized, following formats that you'll become very familiar with during your doctoral studies. These articles are described as refereed or peer-reviewed, meaning that other experts in the field have evaluated the work before publication. Characteristics of scholarly articles. One of the most important characteristics of scholarly articles is their approach to citation and references. These publications include comprehensive footnotes, endnotes, and in-text citations, along with detailed bibliographies or reference lists. This rigorous approach to citation serves multiple purposes. It gives credit to previous scholars, allows readers to trace the development of ideas, and provides a foundation for future research. The vocabulary used in scholarly articles is necessarily complex and technical. This isn't academic jargon for its own sake. It reflects the precision required for scholarly communication. When scholars use terms like organizational citizenship behavior or transformational leadership, they are invoking specific theoretical constructs with established definitions and measurement approaches. Article titles in scholarly publications often include words like journal, review, or annals, and they typically refer to specific fields of study. Examples include the Academy of Management Journal, Academy of Management Annals, or Academy of Management Review. The titles themselves usually employ technical terminology that immediately signals the scholarly nature of the work. Graphics in scholarly articles are used specifically to illustrate points or present data. Every figure and table serves a clear analytical purpose. Advertising when present is minimal and typically focuses on academic books or field-related products rather than consumer goods. Popular articles reaching the general public. Popular articles serve a fundamentally different purpose than scholarly publications. These are found in magazines, newspapers, websites, and blogs, and they are produced by commercial publishers or media organizations. The authors are typically general staff writers, reporters, journalists, or freelancers who may or may not have specialized expertise in the topics they cover. Unlike scholarly authors, these writers are generally paid for their work. The audience for popular articles is the general public, which means the content must be accessible to readers without specialized knowledge. This accessibility requirement shapes everything from vocabulary choices to the depth of analysis provided. Popular articles serve multiple goals: to entertain, persuade, or inform readers by answering basic who, what, where, and when questions. Some popular articles are research-oriented, and attempt to find truth through factual reporting, while others are more propaganda-focused and designed to elicit emotional responses from readers. Characteristics of popular articles. The content of popular articles typically covers current events, general interest topics, and reports on the findings of others rather than original research. The format is variable and may include websites, blogs, reports, and infographics designed for visual impact and easy consumption. Citation practices in popular articles are quite different from scholarly publications. References are rare, and when they are provided, they may offer only short reference lists or links to similarly focused sources rather than comprehensive scholarly citations. The vocabulary in popular articles is deliberately familiar and non-technical to ensure accessibility to general readers. Article titles are usually catchy and designed to attract attention, rather than precisely describe content. Graphics in popular articles are often used for visual impact rather than analytical purposes. They may include glossy photos and eye-catching designs intended to engage readers rather than present data. Advertising in popular publications covers a wide variety of consumer products and is often a primary revenue source for these publications. Examples of popular publications include Newsweek, Time, Rolling Stone, and various blogs. Research-oriented popular publications might include The Washington Post, while propaganda-focused publications might include partisan political magazines or advocacy organization publications. Trade articles serving professional communities. Trade articles occupy a middle ground between scholarly and popular publications. These are produced by trade associations, professional organizations, or vendors serving specific industries. The authors are typically staff writers, professionals, or vendors working in the relevant field, and they are generally paid for their contributions. The audience for trade articles consists of professionals and practitioners in specific trades, industries, or professions. This specialized but non-academic audience allows for technical content, while maintaining practical relevance. The goal of trade articles is to inform and share research or experiences within specific business or industry contexts. These publications focus on current news, trends, and products relevant to their professional communities. The content typically covers industry-specific developments, new products or services, and practical applications of research findings. The format varies, but often includes technical specifications and industry-specific information. Trade publications may have staff editors and might include review by business or industry professionals, though this review process is typically less rigorous than academic peer review. The vocabulary used in trade articles is technical within the specific field, but generally more accessible than scholarly publications. Article titles often include technical terminology relevant to the specific industry. Graphics in trade articles are used to illustrate points relevant to professional practice, and advertising is typically geared toward products and services relevant to the specific industry. Examples of trade publications include American Banker, Pharmacy Times, and Professional Nurse. Strategic implications for doctoral research. Understanding these distinctions has important strategic implications for your doctoral research. Each type of publication serves different purposes in your research process. Scholarly articles provide the theoretical foundation and empirical evidence that will form the core of your literature review and dissertation. These sources establish your credibility within the academic community and demonstrate your mastery of the scholarly conversation in your field. Popular articles can provide current context, help you understand how your research topic is perceived by the general public, and offer insights into practical applications of your research. They can also help you identify emerging trends that haven't yet been addressed in the scholarly literature. Trade articles are particularly valuable for applied research because they provide the practitioner perspective that is essential for understanding real-world applications. They can help you identify practical problems that need scholarly attention and understand how theoretical concepts play out in actual organizational settings. The key is to use each type of source appropriately and to understand their limitations. While a blog post might spark an interesting research idea, it cannot serve as the primary evidence for a scholarly argument. Conversely, while a scholarly article might provide rigorous theoretical grounding, it might not capture the most current practical developments in your field. Evaluating source quality and credibility. Beyond understanding the different types of publications, you must also develop skills in evaluating the quality and credibility of sources within each category. Not all scholarly articles are equally rigorous, not all popular articles are equally reliable, and not all trade publications are equally credible. For scholarly articles, key quality indicators include the reputation of the journal, the rigor of the peer review process, the clarity of the methodology, and the appropriateness of the conclusions drawn from the evidence presented. For popular articles, important factors include the reputation of the publication, the expertise of the author, the quality of sources cited, and the balance of the presentation. For trade articles, relevant considerations include the credibility of the sponsoring organization, the expertise of the author within the industry, and the practical relevance of the information presented. As you progress through your doctoral studies, you will develop increasingly sophisticated judgment about source quality. This judgment will serve you well, not only in your academic work, but also in your professional career, where the ability to distinguish between reliable and unreliable information is increasingly valuable. Systematic article evaluation, the 10 research questions framework. As doctoral students, you will read hundreds of research articles during your academic journey. However, reading is not enough. You must develop the ability to systematically analyze and evaluate the quality, rigor, and contribution of empirical studies. This skill is essential not only for your literature reviews and dissertation work, but also for your future role as scholar practitioners who must make evidence-based decisions. Thomas Rio's 10 Research Questions Framework provides a systematic approach to analyzing empirical studies and assessing their scientific merit. This framework is designed to help emerging researchers like yourselves develop the analytical skills necessary to engage critically with the research literature and to conduct your own rigorous research. The TRQ's framework addresses a critical challenge in doctoral education, helping research neophytes decipher complex and technical empirical research articles and determine their scientific merit. With limited research, method knowledge, and experience, many doctoral students struggle to understand research findings, assess whether standards of rigor were met, and determine if replication and application are warranted. Let me walk you through each of the 10 research questions, explaining not only what to look for, but why each question matters for your development as a scholar practitioner. TRQ1, Research Questions or Hypotheses. Question 1. What were the research questions or hypotheses? This foundational question requires you to identify whether the research questions or hypotheses are clearly stated and whether they align with the study design. Well-crafted research questions provide the roadmap for the entire study. They should be specific enough to guide methodology choices, but broad enough to generate meaningful insights. When evaluating this aspect, ask yourself, can I clearly identify what the researchers were trying to discover or test? Do the research questions logically flow from the literature review and theoretical framework? Are the questions answerable given the methodology employed? Poor research questions are often too vague. How does leadership affect performance? Or too narrow to generate broadly applicable insights. Strong research questions strike a balance between specificity and significance. TRQ2, Rationale for the study. Question 2. What is the rationale for the study? This question focuses on the why behind the research. Why was this study conducted? What gap, conflict, or need does it address? The rationale should clearly articulate the study's importance and its potential contribution to both theory and practice. A strong rationale typically identifies a specific gap in the literature, a contradiction between existing studies, or a practical problem that needs scholarly attention. It should convince you that the research was worth conducting and that the findings will matter to relevant stakeholders. When evaluating rationale, consider whether the authors have made a compelling case for their study's importance. Do they clearly identify what we don't know that the study will help us understand? Have they connected their research to broader theoretical or practical concerns? TRQ3, Theoretical or Conceptual Framework. Question 3, what is the theoretical or conceptual framework? Theory is the backbone of rigorous research. This question requires you to identify which theory or theories underpin the study and assess how well the theoretical framework guides the interpretation of findings. Strong theoretical frameworks do more than just cite relevant theories. They explain how those theories apply to the specific research context and how they inform the research questions, methodology, and interpretation of results. When evaluating theoretical frameworks, ask, is there a clear theoretical foundation for the study? Do the authors explain how their chosen theory applies to their research context? Does the theory provide meaningful guidance for understanding the findings? TRQ4, research context. Question 4, how were the research questions examined? Context. Context matters enormously in applied research. This question focuses on where the study was conducted, what the setting was, and who the population included. Understanding context is crucial for assessing the generalizability and practical applicability of findings. Strong studies provide clear, detailed descriptions of their research context. They explain not only the demographic characteristics of their sample, but also the organizational, cultural, and temporal context in which the research was conducted. When evaluating context, consider, is the research setting clearly described? Is the context appropriate for addressing the research questions? Are there contextual factors that might limit the generalizability of findings? TRQ5, research methods. Question 5, what research methods were used and why? Methodology is where theoretical questions meet practical implementation. This question requires you to evaluate the research design, data collection tools, and the justification for the methods chosen. Strong methodological sections don't just describe what was done, they explain why particular methods were chosen and how those methods are appropriate for addressing the research questions. They also acknowledge the limitations of their chosen approach. When evaluating methodology, ask, are the methods appropriate for the research questions? Are the data collection procedures clearly described? Could another researcher replicate this study based on the information provided? TRQ6, quality control. Question 6, how do the researchers deal with quality control? Ethics, reliability, validity. Quality control encompasses several critical aspects of research rigor. This includes ethical considerations, such as IRB approval and informed consent, reliability of measures, validity of constructs, and overall research integrity. Strong studies demonstrate attention to quality control through multiple mechanisms: ethical approval processes, pilot testing of instruments, assessment of measurement reliability and validity, and acknowledgement of potential biases or limitations. When evaluating quality control, consider, did the researchers obtain appropriate ethical approvals? Are the measures reliable and valid? Have potential sources of bias been addressed? Are the quality control procedures appropriate for the research design? TRQ7, participants. Question 7, who were the participants? Participant characteristics have enormous implications for the interpretation and generalizability of findings. This question requires you to evaluate the sample size, demographic characteristics, and representativeness of the study participants. Strong studies provide detailed descriptions of their participants and explain how the sample was selected. They also discuss the implications of the sampling approach for the generalizability of findings. When evaluating participants, ask, is the sample size adequate for the research design? Are participant characteristics clearly described? Is the sample appropriate for addressing the research questions? Can findings be generalized beyond this specific sample? TRQ8, data collection. Question 8, what data were collected? This question focuses on the variables, measures, and types of data collected. The data should be appropriate for addressing the research questions and should be collected using reliable and valid instruments. Strong studies clearly describe what data were collected, how variables were measured, and why particular measures were chosen. They also provide evidence for the reliability and validity of their measures. When evaluating data collection, consider, are the variables clearly defined and appropriately measured? Are the data collection procedures clearly described? Are the measures appropriate for the research questions? TRQ9, analytical techniques. Question 9, what analytical techniques were used and were they appropriate? The analytical approach should align with the research questions, the type of data collected, and the research design. This question requires you to evaluate whether the statistical or qualitative analysis methods were appropriate and whether the authors justified their analytical choices. Strong studies not only describe their analytical approach, but also explain why particular techniques were chosen and how they address the research questions. They also test and report relevant assumptions. When evaluating analytical techniques, ask, are the analytical methods appropriate for the data and research questions? Are the assumptions of statistical tests met and reported? Are the analytical procedures clearly described? TRQ 10, Interpretations. Question 10, what interpretations were made and were they appropriate? The final question focuses on how well the findings align with the data, theory, and prior literature. Strong interpretations are grounded in the evidence, acknowledge limitations, and suggest directions for future research. This question also requires you to evaluate whether the authors have appropriately connected their findings to the broader theoretical and practical implications discussed in their introduction and literature review. When evaluating interpretations, consider, do the conclusions follow logically from the findings? Are alternative explanations considered? Are the implications for theory and practice clearly articulated? Are limitations acknowledged and future research directions suggested? Applying the 10 research questions framework. The TRQS framework is most effective when applied systematically. Rather than reading an article casually, use these questions to guide your analysis. Take notes on each question as you read, and consider how well the article addresses each criterion. This systematic approach serves multiple purposes. First, it helps you develop critical reading skills that will serve you throughout your academic and professional career. Second, it provides a structured way to identify strengths and weaknesses in existing research, which can inform your own research design. Third, it helps you engage more meaningfully with the scholarly conversation in your field. Remember that not every article will excel on every dimension. The goal is not to find perfect studies, but to develop your ability to assess research quality and to understand how different methodological choices affect the interpretation and application of findings. The broader implications of systematic article analysis. Developing skills in systematic article analysis has implications that extend far beyond your doctoral studies. As future business leaders and scholar practitioners, you will regularly encounter research claims in professional contexts. The ability to critically evaluate these claims, to distinguish between rigorous research and marketing-driven pseudo-research will be invaluable in your professional decision-making. Moreover, the analytical skills you develop through applying frameworks like the TRQs will inform your own research design. By understanding what makes research rigorous and credible, you will be better equipped to design studies that meet high standards of scientific merit. The TRQS framework also helps you understand research as a conversation among scholars. Each study builds on previous work, addresses gaps or contradictions in existing knowledge, and raises new questions for future investigation. By systematically analyzing how individual studies contribute to this conversation, you develop a deeper appreciation for the cumulative nature of scientific knowledge. Comprehensive article evaluation. Campion's article review checklist. While Rayo's 10 research questions provide an excellent foundation for systematic article analysis, Campion's article review checklist offers a complementary framework that adds depth and specificity to your evaluation process. Originally developed for evaluating empirical articles in applied psychology, this checklist has proven widely useful across disciplines and is particularly valuable for business and management research. Campion's framework is organized around 8 major criteria, each containing multiple specific elements to evaluate. This comprehensive approach ensures that you consider all aspects of research quality, from the initial problem formulation through the final contribution to knowledge. Criterion 1. Importance of the problem. The first criterion focuses on the fundamental question of whether the research addresses something that matters. This involves several specific considerations. Is the topic important and significant? The research should address issues that have meaningful implications for theory, practice, or both. Trivial questions, regardless of how well they are studied, contribute little to our understanding or our ability to solve real problems. Is it theoretically relevant? The research should connect to established theoretical frameworks or contribute to theoretical development. Even applied research should have clear theoretical grounding that helps explain why the findings matter beyond the immediate context. Does it have practical value? For applied research, this criterion is particularly important. The research should address problems that practitioners actually face and provide insights that can inform decision-making in real organizational contexts. Is the research question timely and appropriate for the field? The research should address current concerns or emerging issues rather than rehashing well-established findings without adding new insights. When evaluating importance, consider whether you would recommend this research to a colleague facing similar practical challenges. If the answer is no, the research may lack sufficient importance to warrant publication or application. Criterion 2, literature review. The literature review serves multiple critical functions in empirical research, and Campion's framework provides specific guidance for evaluation. Is the review comprehensive and balanced? A strong literature review demonstrates familiarity with the relevant research landscape. It should include seminal works, recent developments, and diverse perspectives on the topic. However, comprehensiveness doesn't mean including every tangentially related study. It means covering the essential works that inform the research questions. Are key prior studies cited and critiqued, not just listed? Weak literature reviews simply list previous studies without analyzing their contributions or limitations. Strong reviews engage critically with prior work, identifying strengths, weaknesses, and gaps that justify the current research. Is the literature organized to provide a logical rationale for the study? The literature review should tell a story that leads naturally to the research questions. It should build an argument for why the current study is needed and how it will contribute to existing knowledge. Are the research gaps clearly identified? The literature review should explicitly identify what we don't know that the current study will help us understand. These gaps provide the justification for the research and help readers understand its potential contribution. Criterion 3, theory and hypotheses. Theoretical grounding distinguishes rigorous research from mere data collection. Are the theoretical foundations clear and appropriate? The research should be grounded in relevant theory that provides a framework for understanding the phenomena being studied. The theoretical foundation should be clearly articulated and well suited to the research context. Are hypotheses or propositions stated explicitly? Clear hypotheses or propositions provide specific, testable predictions that flow from the theoretical framework. They should be stated in a way that allows for clear evaluation of whether they are supported by the data. Are predictions grounded in theory rather than speculation? Hypotheses should derive logically from theoretical principles, rather than from intuition or common sense alone. The connection between theory and predictions should be clearly explained. Is the scope neither too narrow nor too vague? Effective hypotheses strike a balance between specificity and generalizability. They should be specific enough to be testable, but broad enough to generate insights that extend beyond the immediate research context. Criterion 4, methods. Methodological rigor is essential for credible research design. Is the research design appropriate for the questions, hypotheses? The research design should align with the research questions and provide a valid way to test the hypotheses. Different questions require different designs, and the chosen design should be well suited to the specific research objectives. Sample. Is the sample size adequate and sampling procedure justified? The sample should be large enough to provide adequate statistical power and should be selected using procedures that support the intended generalizations. The sampling approach should be clearly described and justified. Measures. Are measures reliable, valid, and aligned with constructs? The measures used should demonstrate adequate reliability and validity for the research context. They should clearly operationalize the theoretical constructs being studied. Procedures. Are methods transparent enough to allow replication? The methodological procedures should be described in sufficient detail that another researcher could replicate the study. This transparency is essential for scientific credibility. Controls. Are confounds or biases adequately addressed? The research design should include appropriate controls for potential confounding variables and should acknowledge and address potential sources of bias. Criterion 5, data analysis. Appropriate analysis is crucial for drawing valid conclusions. Are the statistical or qualitative analyses appropriate for the data? The analytical approach should match the type of data collected and the research questions being addressed. Different types of data and research questions require different analytical approaches. Are assumptions tested and reported? Statistical analyses often rely on specific assumptions about the data. These assumptions should be tested and reported, and violations should be addressed appropriately. Are results presented clearly with proper use of tables figures? Results should be presented in a way that is clear and accessible to readers. Tables and figures should enhance understanding rather than confuse or overwhelm. Are conclusions supported by the data? The conclusions drawn should follow logically from the analysis conducted. Researchers should not claim more than their data can support. Criterion 6, results and discussion. The interpretation of findings is where research moves from description to understanding. Are results clearly linked to hypotheses? The results section should clearly address each hypothesis or research question, indicating whether predictions were supported and to what extent. Are alternative explanations considered? Strong research acknowledges that findings might be explained in multiple ways and considers alternative interpretations of the data. Is there an appropriate balance between statistical significance and practical importance? Statistical significance doesn't automatically imply practical importance. Researchers should discuss both the statistical and practical significance of their findings. Are limitations acknowledged? All research has limitations, and credible researchers acknowledge these limitations and discuss their implications for the interpretation of findings. Criterion 7, presentation. Clear communication is essential for research impact. Is the writing clear, well-organized, and jargon-free? Research should be written in a way that is accessible to the intended audience. While technical precision is important, unnecessary jargon should be avoided. Does the article follow scholarly conventions? The article should follow appropriate formatting and citation conventions for the field, typically APA style for business and psychology research. Are figures and tables helpful, accurate, and interpretable? Visual elements should enhance understanding and should be clearly labeled and explained. Criterion 8, contribution. Ultimately, research should advance knowledge. Does the article advance theory, methods, or practice? The research should make a clear contribution to at least one of these areas. The contribution should be explicitly articulated and well supported. Does it suggest new research directions? Strong research not only answers questions, but also raises new ones. It should suggest productive directions for future investigation. Is the contribution incremental, integrative, or groundbreaking? Different types of contributions are valuable, but the nature of the contribution should be clearly understood and appropriately positioned. Integrating Campion's framework with the TRQs, Campion's article review checklist, and Rayo's 10 research questions complement each other beautifully. The TRQs provide a systematic way to work through an article from beginning to end, while Campion's criteria offer detailed evaluation standards for each major component of empirical research. Together, these frameworks provide a comprehensive approach to article evaluation that will serve you well throughout your doctoral studies and beyond. They help you move beyond superficial reading to deep, critical analysis that enhances your understanding of research quality and contributes to your development as a scholar practitioner. The Master Article Evaluation Rubric. To facilitate your use of these frameworks, we have developed a Master Article Evaluation Rubric that integrates the key elements of both Campion's and Rayo's approaches into a unified assessment tool. This rubric provides specific criteria and a scoring system that allows you to systematically evaluate and compare articles. The rubric includes the following evaluation criteria. Importance: is the topic significant, theoretically relevant, and practically valuable? Research questions. What are the research questions, the hypotheses, and are they clearly stated? Rationale. Why was the study conducted and what gap does it address? Literature review. Is it comprehensive, balanced, and logically structured with clearly identified gaps? Theory hypotheses. Are they clearly stated, grounded in theory, and appropriately scoped? Method quality control. Is the design appropriate and are tools justified? Are sample, measures, and procedures valid and reliable? Method participants. Who were the participants and are demographics clear? Method data. What data were collected and are they appropriate? Method data analysis. Are analyses appropriate, transparent, and aligned with hypotheses? Results and discussion. Are results clearly linked to hypotheses? Are alternative explanations considered? Contribution. Does it advance theory, methods, or practice? Are future research directions offered? Each criterion is scored on a 5-point scale. 1 equals very poor, 2 equals weak, 3 equals adequate, 4 equals strong, 5 equals excellent. 5 equals excellent, allowing you to generate total scores that can be used to compare article quality across your literature review. This systematic approach to article evaluation will not only improve your critical reading skills, but also inform your own research design by helping you understand what constitutes high-quality empirical research. Putting it all together. Now that we have explored the theoretical foundations of background research and article evaluation, let's discuss how to integrate these concepts into your daily practice as doctoral students. The frameworks we've discussed, the 6 W's for background research, the distinction between publication types, Rayo's 10 research questions, and Campion's article review checklist, are not merely academic exercises. They are practical tools that will enhance your efficiency and effectiveness as researchers. Developing your research workflow. Successful doctoral students develop systematic workflows that incorporate these evaluation frameworks into their regular research practice. Here's a recommended approach. Phase 1, Initial Topic Exploration. Begin with broad background research using the 6 W's framework. Cast a wide net across different types of sources, scholarly articles, trade publications, and reputable popular sources. Your goal at this stage is to understand the landscape, not to conduct exhaustive analysis. During this phase, maintain a research journal where you record key insights, interesting questions that emerge, and potential research directions. Don't worry about perfect organization at this stage. Focus on capturing ideas and building familiarity with the field. Phase 2, Source, Categorization, and Quality Assessment. As you identify potentially relevant sources, categorize them according to the scholarly/popular/trade framework. This categorization will help you understand what types of evidence are available and identify gaps in your knowledge. For scholarly sources that seem particularly relevant, begin applying the TRQS framework. You don't need to complete a full evaluation at this stage, but use the questions to help you identify which articles deserve deeper analysis, systematic evaluation, and synthesis. Phase 3, Systematic Article Evaluation. For articles that will likely contribute to your literature review, conduct comprehensive evaluations using both the TRQs and Campion's criteria. Use the Master Article Evaluation rubric to ensure consistency in your assessments and to facilitate comparison across articles. This systematic evaluation serves multiple purposes. It helps you identify the strongest evidence for your literature review. It reveals methodological approaches that might inform your own research design, and it develops your critical analysis skills. Phase 4, Synthesis and Gap Identification. As you accumulate evaluated articles, begin looking for patterns, contradictions, and gaps. What themes emerge across the literature? Where do researchers disagree? What questions remain unanswered? These insights will inform your research focus and help you articulate your contribution to the field. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. As you begin applying these frameworks, be aware of several common pitfalls that can undermine your research effectiveness. Pitfall 1, perfectionism in background research. Some students get stuck in the background research phase, feeling that they need to read everything before they can begin focusing their inquiry. Remember that background research is meant to be broad and exploratory. Set reasonable limits for this phase and move forward even if you feel you haven't covered everything. Pitfall 2, uncritical acceptance of published research. The fact that something is published doesn't automatically make it high-quality research. Use the evaluation frameworks we've discussed to assess the rigor and credibility of sources. Be particularly skeptical of research that seems to confirm your pre-existing beliefs. These are the studies that most need critical evaluation. Pitfall 3. Ignoring practical relevance. While theoretical rigor is important, don't lose sight of practical relevance. Applied research should address real problems that matter to practitioners. If you can't articulate why your research matters to people working in organizations, you may need to reconsider your focus. Pitfall 4. Inadequate documentation. Failing to maintain careful records of your research process can create significant problems later. Document your search strategies, maintain detailed citation information, and keep notes on your evaluations. This documentation will be invaluable when you begin writing your literature review. Building research confidence. One of the most important outcomes of mastering these frameworks is the development of research confidence. Many doctoral students feel overwhelmed by the vast amount of research literature and uncertain about their ability to contribute meaningfully to scholarly conversations. The systematic approaches we've discussed help build confidence by providing clear criteria for evaluation and structured processes for analysis. When you can systematically assess the quality of existing research, you develop a better understanding of what constitutes a meaningful contribution. This understanding, in turn, helps you design research that meets high standards of rigor and relevance. Remember that becoming a skilled researcher is a developmental process. You won't master these frameworks immediately, and that's perfectly normal. The key is to apply them consistently and to reflect on what you learn through the process. Looking ahead from consumer to producer of research. While the focus of this lecture has been on consuming and evaluating research, the skills you're developing will also inform your role as a producer of research. Understanding what makes research rigorous and credible will help you design studies that meet high standards of scientific merit. As you progress through your doctoral program, you'll move from being primarily a consumer of research to being a producer of research. The evaluation frameworks we've discussed provide a roadmap for this transition. When you understand what reviewers and readers look for in high-quality research, you can design your own studies to meet those expectations. Moreover, the critical thinking skills you develop through systematic article evaluation will serve you throughout your career. Whether you're evaluating vendor claims, assessing the credibility of industry reports, or making evidence-based decisions in your professional role, these skills will help you distinguish between reliable and unreliable information. Conclusion: the foundation for scholarly excellence. In this lecture, we have covered the fundamental skills that will support your success throughout your doctoral journey and beyond. We've explored how to conduct effective background research using the 6 W's framework, how to distinguish between different types of publications and their appropriate uses, and how to systematically evaluate the quality and contribution of empirical research using both Rails 10 research questions and Campion's article review checklist. These are not merely academic exercises, they are practical tools that will enhance your effectiveness as researchers and as future business leaders. The ability to conduct thorough background research will help you identify meaningful problems and position your work within the broader scholarly conversation. The skills in systematic article evaluation will help you distinguish between high-quality and low-quality evidence, both in your academic work and in your professional decision-making. Remember that developing expertise in these areas is a process that requires practice and reflection. Don't expect to master these frameworks immediately. Instead, commit to applying them consistently and learning from each application. Over time, these systematic approaches will become second nature, and you'll find that your confidence and competence as a researcher grow significantly. As you complete this lesson, I encourage you to begin applying these frameworks immediately. Start with your literature review assignment, but also consider how these approaches might inform your professional reading and decision-making. The habits you develop now will serve you throughout your career. The journey toward becoming a scholar practitioner is challenging but rewarding. By mastering the foundational skills we've discussed, you're taking important steps toward becoming the kind of researcher and leader who can bridge the gap between theory and practice, contributing to both scholarly knowledge and organizational effectiveness. Your success in this endeavor will not only advance your own career, but will also contribute to the broader goal of creating more evidence-based, effective organizations. This is the ultimate purpose of applied doctoral education, to develop leaders who can use rigorous research to solve real problems and create positive change in the world. And thank you for your attention and engagement in this lecture. References